So if you're watching this, I'm guessing you're either renovating a bathroom or you're about to create a wet room. Now, if we're hosting video calls with our customers and they're doing a bathroom, one of the first things we'll ask them is, are you using a traditional shower tray or are you going to use the sort of wet room tray where you tile the floor? Because there's a big difference in the approach you need to take with regards to the tiles depending on which solution you're going for. Now, in this video, I'm certainly not going into the ins and outs of how you create a wet room, how you tank the walls, or go into the technical detail of installing a wet room shower tray. I'm going to be focusing on which tiles are best for you to use in that environment. But my friends at On The Level, they're a company who make wet room solutions, and they're the guys that I always go to when I'm designing a bathroom for a client. They have a network of retail outlets across the UK, or retailers I should say, across the UK, who'll be more than happy to give you any advice, and their website details will be on the video now, so feel free to contact them for the nitty-gritty of the actual installation of wet room solutions. But we're going to talk about slip resistancy of tiles. Whilst it would be lovely just to focus on the design side from an aesthetic perspective of a wet room or a bathroom with a wet shower tray, that's one of the things that you need to consider last. The most important thing is that you think about safety and the practicalities, because once you start considering tiling a shower tray, you really need to think about what surface of tile you're going to put in that environment. And it actually also changes depending on the overall design of your room. So I'm actually going to bore you for a little bit now and talk to you about slip resistancy. It is the sort of thing that you will most probably fall asleep halfway through, but it is really important. So first of all, we're going to talk about R ratings. So R ratings are something that those of us who've been in the tiling business for quite a long time are more than familiar with. For many, many years, that was the go-to rating that everyone would go to find out what the slip resistancy was of a product. Now, the fascinating thing about it was R rating stands for the ramp test rating. And literally what would happen is somebody would stand on a ramp that had been tiled and they would up the degree of the ramp, and depending on the degree at which that person slips, that would actually give you the R rating. Sounds a little bit simplistic, doesn't it? But it worked for many, many years. But there are two different types of R rating. There's an R rating for people who are wearing shoes, because when you think about this, if you're walking over a surface with shod feet, then you're going to have a completely different interaction with the surface than you would if you had bare feet, because bare feet will actually sort of contour over a grippy surface, whereas shoes, if you've got a flat sole like I've got at the moment, it's not going to contour. So you really do need to test them in different environments. Now, the R rating for a shod foot starts at an R9, and that R9 really has very little slip resistance, but it grows as the ramp goes up. Then the slip resistance increases. So an R10 is a little bit better than an R9, an R11, that's more like it. That's going to give you a nice bit of grip underfoot. And then you go on to 12 and 13, which is quite extreme. But the other type of R rating is when you're wearing no shoes. So you've got bare feet. And what they do when they do that test, they actually tile the surface of the ramp. They then contaminate the tiles with a soapy substance and then ask some poor person to stand on the ramp while they increase the angle. And again, depending on the angle, that will give you three different types of results: RA, RB, or RC. Now, there are very, very defined uses for the different categories, and we'll put that in a table for you to see so you can actually suss out which is which. But by using both of those systems together, you can actually have, for example, a tile that is an R11 AB, which is perfect for pool surrounds, or it's perfect for wet room trays. And by looking at this detail, it's really good to give you the right guidance with regards to safety in a bathroom. The other thing I'd like to say is that no tile is slippery when it's completely clean and dry. It's only when contaminants get involved. So if water goes on the surface, or if you're in the kitchen and you spill some fat, or even sometimes a buildup of shampoos, conditioners in your shower, that is when a surface becomes slippery. So one of the most important things if you're designing a wet room is that your cleaning routine is really good. So one would think you get your head around our ratings and then life's easy when it comes to making decisions on tiles, but oh no, there is now a new rating that the Health and Safety Executive in the UK really is keen for us to actually work to, and that is a PTV rating. It's a pendulum test values. And basically what happens is a pendulum that has a rubber on the end of it actually slips across the surface of the tile, and depending on how quickly it stops, and I'm not going to get into the technical details because I'll be honest, I've never done a pendulum test myself, but I do know that this is very thorough and a really good test, and it will actually also test in environments. For example, how many of us have been to a leisure centre and the floor seemed a little bit slippy? Well, that can quite often be a contaminant. It's just so many people have been in and out of the showers, dripping with body gel and all that sort of stuff, that the floor actually gets slightly contaminated. But if the floor was cleaned properly, then the actual floor would no longer be slippery. And the pendulum test can actually be done within an environment once the tiles are finished and laid. So it's a much better safety test for the Health and Safety Executive to avoid slipping. But the PTV rating is done in two ways. One in the wet conditions and one in dry conditions. Obviously, when you're looking at wet room floors, we need to be thinking about PTV results in the wet. So there is a wonderful little table of PTV results, which I would strongly suggest you take a little look at. But in simple terms, a plus 36 PTV is considered to have a low risk of slipping. So that's one of the most important things. So in our office, when we are actually advising clients, we tend to look at both the R ratings and the PTV ratings. But remember, if it's plus 36 PTV, there are different degrees above that. You can have plus 36, plus 40, plus 43, all depends on the result. So all tiles of plus 36 are not equal. Some will be more slip resistant than others. So now you've had an overview on slip resistance, let's talk about the different types of tiles you can use in a wet room environment. Now, when wet rooms first became popular, the go-to was the Mosaic. And the reason it was so popular was because when you consider a Mosaic and a barefoot, you've got lots and lots of joints around the actual edge of the tile, and your foot actually molds into those joints, and that's what gives it the slip resistance. It's not necessarily the surface, because you could actually put a glass mosaic on the floor of your shower, and because they're all tiny little tiles, your foot will mold around it and it'll actually be quite safe. The other thing, of course, is that they're very easy for your tiler to install. To get a tile to lay on a shower tray, lay to fall, so all the water's falling towards the drain, is quite an easy process when you're using a mosaic, but it becomes slightly more difficult when you're using a tile. So that's where mosaics were the first point, but I must admit, as an interior designer myself, I think we've moved on a little bit from there, so I now prefer to use a much larger tile than a small mosaic. So the next option you have is to go for a range of tiles that come in different finishes. Because one of the things about actually creating a wet room or doing a bathroom scheme with tiles is that if you go for an anti-slip tile, for example, this is an anti-slip finish from one of our collections, and all the details will actually be in a blog post about anti-slip finishes and creating wet rooms. So don't forget to click on the link of that at the end of this video. But this is really grippy. Wonderfully safe in an actual shower area when you've got bare feet. However, if there's no water swilling all over it, it is going to be an absolute nugget to keep clean. So you wouldn't want to put this on the main floor area of your bathroom. You would want to put just a natural finish, something like this, not shiny. So if you do step out of the showering area onto the dry area with wet feet, you're not going to slip. However, they will work, excuse the cuts, these are just cut samples, but they will work together beautifully and the floor will look relatively seamless. However, you've got the safety aspect of the actual anti-slip in the wet room area, and then you've got the easy to clean and won't drive you mad finish in the other areas. And with most of our tiles like that, we also then have a wonderful polished version that looks fantastic on the walls. Now this is when we touch a little bit on interior design, because there's a huge trend towards pattern tiles at the moment. I know how much so many of you love them, and you can now, like our Mayfair range, get a tile that has an anti-slip finish. This is actually an R11 AB, so it's perfect for wet room environments. But there's something you really need to think about if you're using a pattern tile on a wet room floor, because you need to consider how the pattern is going to work together when they actually cut it to go around the shower tray. Now, one of the things, life's never easy, can't be easy, can it? One of the other things you need to think about is the fact that there are different types of shower tray to be tiled. And here's an example. You've got 3 different types. You've got the one-way fall, the two-way fall, and the four-way fall. Now, when I say fall, that's the actual direction that the water's going to have to flow to go towards the drain. And that is the way that the tiler is going to have to cut in the tiles and make sure that your floor has got that tiny, tiny little fall where the water will not flow into your room and then down the corridor into the hallway, but is going to flow back into the drain as you want it to. So think about your pattern. If you have a 4-way fall on your tray, it's going to be far more difficult for your tiler to cut the pattern into that tray. If you love a pattern like this, or a different pattern, I'd suggest you go for a 1-way fall or maximum of 2, making the tiler's job a lot easier. So another solution I really, really like is going for a brick shaped tile. This is a fabulous porcelain. This is our textured brick, comes in a few different colours, and I like to use it as a herringbone on a bathroom floor. I think it looks fabulous. This tile has actually got an anti-slip finish, but you can get away with using unusual shaped tiles in a herringbone design because again, all those joints interlocking are actually going to give your barefoot a little bit more resistance and adding to the safety of your floor. But that said, something of this size that was really shiny, I definitely wouldn't recommend. But something that's got a relatively good rating, say an R9 or an R10, or is plus 36, in this shape would look fabulous in your bathroom and would give you the safety that you need, whereas also it's not going to be too difficult to keep clean in the other areas. And finally, Baked have actually been working with a factory to produce quite a special new product. It's a new range called No Boundaries, and it comes in 2 finishes. It comes in a wonderful stone effect tile and also in a wood tile. Now, the nice thing about this product is it's got soft anti-slip technology. What does that mean then? Well, basically, to the touch, it feels really smooth. So it actually is quite good when it comes to keeping the product clean. And also though, in a wet condition, it's an R11 AB. So it's absolutely brilliant and gives you the slip resistance you need. So there will always be a trade-off, incidentally. If you want an anti-slip tile, it is never going to be as easy to clean as a standard tile. But this particular technology is fabulous. The factory have been working on it for a couple of years, and they really have honed it to that one particular sort of sweet spot where you could put this tile through the whole of your kitchen, you could put it in a cloakroom, it will be really easy to keep clean, you're not going to worry about, little bits of dirt coming in off your feet from the garden, for example. But you can also flow it directly out onto your patio, exactly the same finish, and it's going to give you the slip resistance you need in the wet. Take it straight into the shower floor and it'll be absolutely perfect. So we're really excited to be able to launch this technology, and it comes in a range of different colours and the 2 different finishes, and oh my gosh, one solution for all. Oh, wish everything in life was that easy, huh? So now you understand a little bit about anti-slip finishes. We've talked about the different types of tiles that are available to you. Let's talk about specific bathroom types. There are 3 really different types of spaces. A pure wet room is a room where your shower and all the other bits all sort of integrate. There isn't a shower cubicle, there isn't a shower screen, it's just a fairly small space with a drain in the centre, all being perfectly tanked to manufacturer's guidelines, like on the level, and then you tile the whole area. It's so practical, except the fact that your loo is going to get wet in that room and your basin is going to get splashed with water when you're having a shower, but it's truly, truly practical. And in that environment with a small space, because the water that comes out of the shower is going to go over most of the floor, go with an anti-slip tile. You don't need to combine it with a natural product. So, bathroom layout or wet room layout number 2. This is an area where you actually create a wet room zone within the bathroom. So there's quite a trend at the moment towards having wet areas in a bathroom and then the drier areas. So you may, for example, have a bath up against the wall, and in front of the bath you may have a wet room tray with no screen and a lovely shower head. So you'd stand in front of the bath to shower, and then from that point forward the rest of the space is a lot drier. What you need to do there is to make sure that the wet area has a sufficient slip resistance, and again, because there's water swilling over it all the time, it will help you to keep it clean. But in the areas, for example, if your bathroom design, you were walking into the bathroom area and the WC was there and you're going to be using that section a lot and it's a family bathroom, then you want to make sure that the floor around that section is just a natural finish. Not polished, not glazed, unless it's glazed with a matte finish, but you want something that's going to be relatively easy to keep clean, but isn't going to be slippery when you walk from the wet area. Finally, you've got the bathroom that has a walk-in shower tray but with a screen. That makes life a lot easier. All you need to do there is to make sure that the tile that's actually within the shower floor area itself has got adequate anti-slip properties, and then from the point from which the actual shower floor transitions into the main bathroom floor, just use a natural finish, or if you're going to go for an anti-slip pattern, you can just take the whole thing right the way through. So finally, you've got all the information you need. Now you can have the really enjoyable task of actually honing everything down and creating the perfect interior design scheme for your bathroom. But once you have completed it, one little tip. A lot of people say, well, how do you keep anti-slip tiles clean? The best thing you can do is to make sure that when you do clean them, the final rinse is with really clean hot water. If you have your final rinse over your anti-slip floor with a detergent in it, all that will happen is the detergent is going to grab the next load of dirt that actually is stepped onto it, and it's going to be far more difficult to keep clean. So hoover your floor, maybe get a hot bucket with a tiny little bit of detergent to get rid of any stubborn marks, and then finally give it a clean rinse with some really hot water. Et voila!